The locked door. The evening was quiet when Sundar Pichai returned home after a long day of meetings. His mother, Lakshmi Pichai, had been waiting for him with her usual calm smile. She had grown older and weaker in recent years, but her presence always gave him strength. The bond between them was deep, built through years of struggle, sacrifice, and silent love. On this evening, something unexpected happened. As they walked together toward a small room in their home, the door clicked behind them. Sundar turned the handle, but it would not move. The lock had jammed tightly. The windows were sealed, and the sound outside could not reach them. It was just him and his mother locked inside. At first, Sundar tried to stay calm. He pulled the handle again and again, but nothing changed. Lakshmi, sitting on a wooden chair by the window, spoke softly. "It is all right. Maybe we needed this time?" Her words surprised him. She was not worried, not angry, not restless. Instead, she looked almost peaceful. Sundar sat down across from her, breathing heavily from the effort. "Amma, you are not scared?" he asked. Lakshmi shook her head. "Why should I be scared when I am with my son?" Those simple words hit Sundar harder than the locked door. He remembered all the years when she had stood by him, no matter how difficult life became. He remembered the nights when she cooked on a small stove in their modest home, saving every coin to pay for his books. He remembered how she hid her own pain so he could chase his dreams. But now, sitting in the locked room, Sundar felt something he had not felt in years: helplessness. He was one of the most powerful leaders in the world, yet here, with his mother, he was just a son, unable to open a simple door. The silence grew heavy. The room was dim, with only a small bulb casting soft light on their faces. Sundar looked at his mother carefully. She seemed tired, but her eyes carried the same strength as always. "Amma," he whispered, "I was so busy all these years. I missed so many moments with you. Maybe this is a punishment?" Lakshmi smiled gently. "No, my son. This is not punishment. This is a gift. The world keeps you busy, but here the world is shut outside. Now you have only me, and I have only you." Tears formed in Sundar's eyes. He wanted to say more, but his throat tightened. For a long time, they both sat in silence, hearing only the faint hum of the bulb above them. Then, slowly, Lakshmi began to tell him stories from his childhood. She spoke of the day he first held a book, the joy in his eyes, and the determination in his small hands. She spoke of the times when neighbors doubted that a boy from their small house could ever reach the world, and how she never allowed those doubts to touch him. Sundar listened, his heart heavy and light at the same time. Every word she spoke reminded him of the roots he had almost forgotten. He realized that being locked in the room was not trapping him. It was freeing him from the noise of the outside world. But as the minutes passed, a new worry rose in him. His mother's health was fragile. The air in the room was warm, and she looked weaker with each passing moment. He stood and knocked on the door loudly, calling for help, but no one answered. Panic filled his chest. Lakshmi, however, reached out and took his hand. "Sit with me," she said softly. "Do not waste these moments shouting at the door." Her voice carried both love and command. Sundar sat again, holding her hand tightly, and in that silence, something rare happened. For the first time in many years, they were simply mother and son, without the world watching, without responsibilities, without distractions. Their silent moments began to speak louder than words. Yet deep inside, Sundar felt torn. Should he fight harder to escape, or should he surrender to the gift his mother saw in this accident? The conflict pulled at him, making his heart restless. The locked door stood before them, silent and unmovable. But in the stillness of the room, another door was opening, one inside Sundar's heart. Whispers in the silence, the air inside the room grew heavier as time passed. Sundar's mind kept racing, searching for a solution, but his hands stayed locked with his mother's. Every time he tried to stand up and look for a way out, Lakshmi gave a gentle squeeze, as if reminding him that sometimes the answer was not in the fight, but in the stillness. "Amma," Sundar said softly, "you always carry this calmness even when things look dark. How do you do that?" "I try to stay strong in front of the world, but inside, I am restless." Lakshmi leaned back, her face glowing faintly under the weak light. "Strength, my son, is not about winning every battle. It is about not letting fear control your heart. When you were small, we had days when there was no proper food in the kitchen, but I never wanted you to see fear in my eyes. Because if you saw me afraid, you would stop dreaming. So I chose silence. Silence is not empty, Sundar. Silence is full of answers. Her words entered him like medicine, easing wounds he had hidden for years. He remembered the nights as a student, when he stayed awake reading under a dim lamp, while she quietly sat beside him, pretending to sew but really watching him, making sure he did not fall asleep on his books. Amma, do you know what I felt when I walked into my office for the first time as CEO? Sundar asked, his voice trembling. Lakshmi shook her head gently. I felt proud, Sundar continued. But then I felt guilty. I remembered you walking barefoot to the market carrying heavy bags because we could not afford much. I remembered you sacrificing your own clothes so I could buy my first computer book. I sat in the biggest chair of my life, but inside I was still your son, sitting in a small house, worrying if I deserved it. Lakshmi reached up and touched his face, her fingers shaking but warm. You deserved every bit of it, my son. Do not think your success is separate from me. Every step you took was also mine, and every step I took was yours. We are tied together like thread and cloth. A silence followed, but it was no longer heavy. It was tender, like a blanket wrapped around them. Sundar wanted to hold on to it, but his worry for her health returned. She coughed lightly, and he immediately stood up. Amma, this room is too warm. We need to get out, he said firmly. He grabbed a chair and tried to strike the door, but the wood only shook. Frustration built in his chest. Lakshmi closed her eyes, whispering, Sometimes doors open only when the heart is ready. Her words stopped him mid-motion. He looked at her with disbelief. Amma, this is not the time for riddles. You need fresh air. I cannot just sit here. Lakshmi opened her eyes again, calm but firm. Listen, Sundar. The world taught you to always move fast, to break through every barrier. But life is not only about breaking. Sometimes it is about waiting. Sometimes it is about listening to what silence wants to say. Her words pierced him deeper than the locked door ever could. He sat back down slowly, his breath uneven, and then, as if to test him further, the light flickered. For a moment, the room was plunged into darkness. Sundar felt his chest tighten. The silence grew thicker, filled only with their breathing. He held her hand tighter, afraid she might slip away in the dark. Amma, I am here, he whispered. I know, she replied softly, and that is enough. Minutes felt like hours. The darkness forced Sundar to close his eyes and listen, not to the outside world, but to his own heart. He realized how much of his life had been spent chasing time, racing against others, proving himself to people who did not even know his story. And yet here, with his mother, time slowed down. It was not about proving. It was about being. Then something surprising happened. Lakshmi began humming a tune, the same lullaby she sang when he was a child. Her voice was weak, but the melody carried strength. Sundar felt tears rolling down his face. He had not heard that lullaby in decades, and yet every note pulled him back to nights when she held him close, whispering promises that tomorrow would be better. The locked door no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like a guardian, keeping the world out so they could share this rare moment. Yet, in Sundar's heart, another fear was building. He could not shake the thought. What if this silence was his last with her? What if this room became their final memory together? He swallowed hard, and in the darkness he made a silent promise. Amma, I will never again let the world steal these moments from us. Even if I have to break every rule of my busy life, I will keep you first. The light flickered back, faint but steady. Lakshmi looked at him, her eyes shining with quiet pride. Then maybe, Sundar, the door will open when it knows you have learned what you needed. And as her words echoed in the room, a soft sound came from the lock, like metal shifting. Sundar froze, his heart pounding. The test of patience. The faint sound near the lock faded into silence again, leaving Sundar restless. For a moment he thought the door might open, but nothing happened. The metal stayed unmoved and the room remained closed. His hope rose and fell in the same breath, leaving him more unsettled. He sat back down slowly, watching his mother. Lakshmi's breathing was calm, but he noticed the tiredness in her eyes. Her strength came not from her body, but from her spirit. Sundar felt guilt return, heavy like a weight on his chest. Amma, he said in a low voice. I cannot forgive myself. I built a life so busy that I forgot what truly matters. I gave the world my time, but I left you waiting. Now fate has trapped us here, reminding me of my mistakes. Lakshmi shook her head gently. No, my son. Life is not about counting the hours we lose. It is about using the hours we have. Right now, you are here beside me. This is enough. Her words felt like water to his dry heart. He wanted to believe her, but another sound distracted him. The sudden creak of wood above them. Sundar looked up. The ceiling had a small crack and faint dust fell from it. He quickly moved closer to his mother. Amma, stay near me, he said firmly. I don't trust this room. She smiled softly, almost amused. Even in danger, you think of me first. That is what makes you my son. But Sundar could not ignore the fear inside him. The lock was stuck, the windows were sealed, and now even the ceiling seemed weak. He walked to the door again and pressed his forehead against it, whispering prayers he had not spoken in years. Then Lakshmi's voice filled the silence. Do you remember the time we both were locked outside our own house when you were a boy? Sundar turned, surprised. Yes, Amma. I remember standing outside in the rain. You told me not to cry, even though we had nowhere to go. Lakshmi nodded. That night a neighbor gave us shelter. I told you then that life is full of locked doors, but someone always helps open them. Maybe today is the same. Maybe someone will come. Sundar wanted to believe her, but the hours dragged on, and no sound came from outside. The silence was pressing against his mind like a storm. To calm himself, he sat down again, and Lakshmi began to speak of old memories. She told him how he once built a small radio with his own hands, smiling proudly even when it did not work perfectly. She told him how he carried his school bag bigger than his own shoulders, never complaining because he wanted to learn. Her voice softened. You always had fire in your eyes, Sundar. You wanted to know more, to see more, and I prayed every day that the world would never crush that fire. Now look at you. The world knows your name, but here in this room you are still my boy. Sundar lowered his head, tears blurring his vision. Her words tore down the walls he had built over the years. He no longer felt like a CEO or a leader. He felt like a son who wanted nothing more than to keep his mother safe. Then, suddenly, the bulb flickered again. This time, it did not come back. The room was filled with complete darkness. Sundar's heart raced. He reached for his mother's hand, gripping it tightly. Amma, I am here. Don't be afraid, but Lakshmi's voice came, steady as ever. Darkness cannot harm us, Sundar. What matters is that we are together. Close your eyes. Let the darkness teach you. He obeyed, closing his eyes, though they were already useless in the dark. He felt her hand in his, fragile yet strong. He listened to her breathing, steady like a rhythm that reminded him of childhood nights when she lay beside him so he could fall asleep without fear. In the silence, Sundar realized something powerful. All his life he had chased light, success, recognition, progress. But in the deepest dark, what gave him strength was not light, but love. Still, a question gnawed at him. How long could they stay like this? His mother's health was weak, and time was not their friend. As if sensing his thoughts, Lakshmi whispered, Sometimes God locks us in a room not to punish us, but to protect us from storms outside. Maybe we are safer here than we know. Her words were strange, almost mysterious. Sundar wanted to ask her what she meant, but before he could speak, a loud bang came from the hallway outside. It sounded like someone had slammed another door. His heart jumped. Was someone there? He called out loudly. Hello? Is anyone there? We are locked inside. But there was no reply. Only silence returned, deeper than before. Sundar held his mother's hand tighter. Amma, I heard something. I am sure someone is out there. Lakshmi leaned closer, whispering. Then maybe the test is not over yet. Maybe we must wait a little longer. Her calm voice steadied him, but the suspense in his chest only grew stronger. Shadows of fear. The silence after the bang in the hallway was unbearable. Sundar kept staring at the door as if it might suddenly burst open, but nothing happened. The sound had come and gone, leaving only questions behind. Who was outside? Why had they not answered his call? Sundar's heart pounded. He could no longer sit still. He rose and pressed his ear to the wooden door. Faint echoes lingered in the corridor beyond, but he could not tell if it was footsteps or just his imagination. "Amma!"
"I think someone is there," he whispered. "Lakshmi."
Calm as always, replied softly. "If they are meant to come, they will come. But until then, we have each other." Her words soothed him for a moment, but the fear inside him refused to leave. The darkness in the room was thick now, swallowing every corner. Even though he held her hand, a strange thought entered his mind. What if something happened to her here, and no one knew? He turned back to her. "Amma, promise me you will not close your eyes for too long. Stay awake with me. I cannot lose you like this." Lakshmi smiled faintly, her face lit only by the thin glow slipping through the crack at the bottom of the door. "My son, do not be afraid of what you cannot control. Life has its way. What matters is not how long we stay, but how we stay." Sundar sat down again, fighting the storm in his chest. He remembered moments from his life where silence had nearly broken him, waiting for exam results as a boy, waiting for his first job reply, waiting for decisions that shaped his career. But this silence was different. This was not about his life alone. This was about hers. Minutes stretched like hours. Sundar tried once again to knock hard, calling louder this time. "Hello, is anyone outside? We need help!" His voice echoed back, but no one replied. Frustration boiled inside him. He kicked the door with all his strength, but the wood barely shook.
"Why is no one listening?"
he muttered, almost to himself. Lakshmi's voice broke the tension. "Maybe they cannot hear, Sundar. Maybe this is between us and no one else." Her calmness was almost frightening. How could she stay so peaceful when the situation felt so hopeless? Sundar sat back, exhausted, running his hands through his hair. Then, to his surprise, Lakshmi began to speak again, her tone deeper, carrying the weight of hidden memories. "Do you know, my son, there were many days I felt trapped in my own life. When your father worked long hours and I had to manage the house alone, I felt locked in walls that no one could see. But I chose to smile because I knew my children needed me strong. This room is nothing compared to the cages we carry inside our hearts." Her confession shook Sundar. He had never heard her speak of her struggles so openly. She had always shown only strength, never weakness. Now, in the locked room, she revealed her silent battles. "Amma, you should have told me," Sundar said, his voice breaking. "I thought you never felt tired, never felt trapped. I thought you were stronger than pain." Lakshmi's eyes softened. "I hid my pain so you could grow without fear. But today, you are old enough to know that even strength has scars. And those scars are not shame, they are proof we survived." Sundar felt his throat tighten. He realized he had always seen her as unbreakable, but now he saw her as human, fragile, yet braver than anyone he knew. Before he could respond, the sound came again. A clear shuffle outside the door. Sundar jumped to his feet, his heart racing. "Hello, can you hear me?" "We are locked inside!" This time he was certain he heard footsteps. They were slow, almost hesitant, moving closer to the door. Sundar pressed his ear to the wood, waiting desperately. But then the footsteps stopped. Silence returned, heavier than before. "Why didn't they open it?" Sundar whispered in frustration. Lakshmi closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening beyond the silence. Then she said something that sent a chill through him. "Maybe it is not time yet. Maybe we are still meant to face this darkness a little longer." Her words sounded calm, but Sundar could feel his patience breaking. His mother's health was delicate, and every passing moment felt like a risk. Yet her strength, her unshaken peace, was the only thing holding him together. He sat back down beside her, holding her hand with both of his. His voice softened. "Amma, if we never leave this room, I want you to know I am proud to be your son. Everything I achieved, everything the world praises me for, it all started with you. If I could choose again, I would still choose this life with you." Lakshmi's lips curved into a weak but radiant smile. "And I would choose you, Sundar. Always." For a moment, the locked room no longer felt like a prison. It felt like the heart of their journey, a place where truth finally broke free. But just as the moment settled, a sudden crash echoed outside the door, louder than before. Sundar stood instantly, his heart hammering. The sound behind the door, The crash outside was so sudden that Sundar felt his whole body freeze. For a moment, he thought someone had fallen or something heavy had broken in the corridor. His heart pounded so hard that he could hear it in his ears. He pressed his ear to the door again, holding his breath. There it was, faint breathing, uneven, just on the other side. "Hello," Sundar shouted, his voice desperate. "Please, open the door. My mother is inside with me," silence answered. The breathing stopped. Then, a slow dragging sound began, like feet being pulled across the floor. Sundar's skin prickled. He tried to control his thoughts, telling himself it must be a guard or worker, but something about the hesitation in those steps made him uneasy. Lakshmi's voice broke through the tension. "My son, do not fear shadows you cannot see. Focus on what is in front of you." Sundar turned, frustrated. "Amma, how can I not fear? You are not well, and I cannot protect you in here. I feel useless." She looked at him with calm eyes. "You are not useless, Sundar. You are here, and sometimes, presence is greater than power." Her words settled deep inside him, but the sound outside the door continued. Another crash, louder, shook the silence. Sundar clenched his fists. He wanted to tear the door down, to confront whatever was beyond, but he could do nothing. Sitting back, he began to think of every moment life had tested him. Exams that seemed impossible, interviews that almost broke his confidence, decisions where he felt alone. But none of those compared to this helplessness. He looked at his mother. She had closed her eyes, breathing slow and steady, her hand still in his. Her face was peaceful, even as the world outside their door seemed to fall apart. "Amma," he whispered, "you are my strength, but today I feel like a child again." Afraid of the dark, without opening her eyes, Lakshmi replied softly, "Then let the child inside you breathe. Even the strongest man needs to remember he was once small. Strength is not pretending to be unbreakable. Strength is knowing when to let someone hold you." Sundar's throat tightened. He realized she was not only comforting him, she was teaching him one of the deepest lessons of his life. But before he could answer, a sudden jolt shook the door. The handle rattled as if someone was trying to open it. Sundar leapt to his feet, pulling his mother's chair slightly away from the door. "Who is there?" he shouted, his voice sharp with both hope and fear. The rattling stopped. Silence. Then came 3 slow knocks. The sound echoed through the room like thunder, each knock heavy and deliberate. Sundar felt his chest tighten, his breath shallow. He shouted again, "Open it! Please open the door!" But no key turned, no voice replied. Only the 3 knocks remained in his memory, as if carved into the walls of the room. Lakshmi, still calm, whispered, "Sometimes answers come in ways we do not expect. Do not lose your heart." Sundar sank down beside her, gripping her hand with both of his. He felt a storm inside, fear, frustration, hope, and confusion all mixing together. The door had spoken, but the mystery behind it grew deeper. He leaned his head against her shoulder, whispering, "Amma, I don't know what is waiting for us, but I know one thing. Whatever happens, I will not let go of your hand." Lakshmi's weak fingers squeezed his. "That is all I ever wanted, my son." Outside, the corridor grew silent again. But Sundar knew one thing for certain. The locked door was no longer just a barrier of wood and metal. It was a test, and someone beyond it was watching, waiting for the right moment to change everything. The breaking point. The silence after the 3 knocks was heavier than anything Sundar had felt before. It pressed against his chest, making it hard to breathe. He kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open, waiting for a voice, waiting for something. But nothing came. His mother's hand was still in his, warm but weaker than before. He looked at her face carefully. Her eyelids fluttered, and for the first time that night, fear shot through him. Not for himself, but for her. "Amma," he whispered urgently. "Are you all right?" She opened her eyes slowly and gave a faint smile. "I am here, Sundar. Do not be afraid." But Sundar could not hide his fear. He could feel her strength slipping, and the room seemed to grow smaller, tighter, darker. He stood and hit the door with his fists. "Open this! Someone help us!" His voice cracked with desperation. He kicked the wood until his legs ached, but it did not break. The echoes came back at him like cruel reminders of his helplessness. When he turned back, Lakshmi was still watching him, her eyes soft. "You are fighting too much, my son. Sometimes, strength is not in breaking doors, but in trusting the moment." Sundar sank down beside her again, burying his face in his hands. "Amma, I am scared. I can face the whole world, but not this. Not losing you here, like this." Her fragile fingers touched his arm. "You will not lose me, Sundar. Even if one day my body leaves, my love will never leave you. That is what mothers give, the part of us that stays forever." Tears rolled down Sundar's face. He felt like a child again, clinging to her words, afraid of the dark. Then, from outside, the sound returned. Footsteps, clear this time, steady, approaching. He jumped to his feet, his heart hammering. "Hello? Please! We are locked in here!" The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Sundar pressed his ear against the wood. He could hear the faint sound of breathing again, stronger than before. "Please, open it," he begged. "My mother is not well. I need your help." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the handle rattled, slowly, carefully, as if someone was testing it. Sundar held his breath. His hands trembled as he waited. But once again, it stopped. No key turned. No door opened. Sundar slammed his fist against the wood. "Why? Why won't you help us?" Lakshmi's voice came from behind him, calm yet powerful. "Because, my son, not every door opens from outside. Some doors open only from within." He turned, confused. "Amma, what do you mean?" She looked at him deeply, her eyes glowing even in the dim light. "This room is not just wood and lock. It is life teaching you. It is showing you that no matter how high you climb, you are still human, and you still need love more than power. Maybe the door waits until you truly understand." Her words struck him harder than any crash. He realized that all night he had been fighting the door, fighting the silence, fighting his fear. But maybe he had not yet surrendered to what this moment wanted him to learn. He sat back down beside her, gripping her hand tighter than before. "Amma, if this is the lesson, then I understand. I don't need the world right now. I don't need escape. I only need you." She smiled, and for a second her face looked younger, filled with the quiet beauty of truth. Then, without warning, the door made a sound, a deep click, like metal unlocking itself. Sundar froze. His eyes widened as he stared at the handle. Lakshmi whispered, "Do you hear it?" Sundar nodded, his heart racing. But the door did not swing open. It stayed closed, as if waiting. He swallowed hard, knowing the moment of truth was near. When the door finally opened, the heavy click from the lock echoed through the room, and Sundar froze, holding his breath. His mother's eyes stayed calm, as if she had known all along that this moment would come. He stared at the door, waiting for it to swing wide, but it did not move. His heart raced. He rose slowly, still holding Lakshmi's hand, and stepped toward the handle. It glimmered faintly in the dim light. With shaking fingers, he reached out and pressed it down. For the first time that night, the handle moved. The door creaked open just slightly, letting in a thin line of light from the corridor. Sundar's chest tightened. The world outside was finally reaching them. He turned to his mother with relief in his eyes. "Amma, it's opening. We can leave." But Lakshmi, instead of rushing, whispered softly, "Before we step out, tell me, my son, what did you learn here?" Sundar knelt beside her, his eyes moist. "I learned that no matter how high I rise, I am still only your son. I learned that silence speaks louder than noise, and love is stronger than any power. I learned that presence is more important than achievement. I will never again let the world take me away from the people who gave me strength." Her weak fingers brushed his face, and a smile formed. "Then this locked room has given us more than freedom. It has given us truth." With effort, Sundar helped her stand. They walked slowly toward the open door, their steps in unison, their hands tightly joined. As the light touched her face, Lakshmi looked radiant, as if the world itself was bowing to her resilience. Outside, the corridor was empty. No footsteps, no shadow, no sign of the one who had knocked or rattled the handle. It was as if the silence itself had unlocked the door. Sundar looked around unsettled, but his mother whispered, "Some doors are opened not by hands, but by hearts." They stepped out, and the door closed quietly behind them. That night changed Sundar forever. He returned to his life of meetings, decisions, and responsibilities, but his heart carried the memory of the room. Whenever he felt restless, whenever the world's pressure weighed too heavy, he remembered his mother's hand in his, her words in the dark, and the silence that had taught him what truly mattered. Lakshmi, too, carried that memory. Though her health was fragile, her spirit grew even stronger. She often reminded him, "Remember, my son, no door in life can keep love locked away." And every time he looked into her eyes, Sundar knew that the night they were trapped had been more than an accident. It had been a gift, a moment where time stopped and love became the key that opened not just a door, but his heart.